Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of Records Near Me, a podcast for music lovers. This episode will be going inside Smash Records in Washington, D.C., which has been at the center of the hardcore punk scene there since Bobby Polsky first opened it in 1984. It has been, and still is, the premier punk and alternative music and clothing store in D.C. Originally located in Georgetown, the store moved to its current location in the Adams-Morgan neighborhood in the mid-2000s, where the legacy continues. It is now owned by Matt Moffat, former employee at the original location, and in a bit, you'll hear me talk with him a little bit about the store and a little bit about himself. Now, this place is really cool, and I love how specialized it is. They mainly carry punk, indie, and alternative rock, so don't come looking for anything else. And when you first walk in, you'll see all the CDs in the front of the store, and you'll see the back is split between the vinyl and clothing. And did I mention they also sell skateboard stuff? If punk is your thing, Smash is your place because it's a one-stop shop, so you should check it out. But without further ado, let's get into the show. But first, let me just say thank you to Andre for recording my theme song for me.
Records near me, let's go and see what lies behind a record source mine. If your lust get found, take in the sound. It's the place to go when you're feeling low. So, if you don't mind, I'll share what we find. I'll make a podcast so all these will last. If you love get found, take in the sound, and we finally get to hear me say, wow!
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Records Near Me. Today I'm joined by Matt Moffat, owner of Smash Records right here in Washington, D.C.
Yo, what's up? Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, you used to work here before you bought the place, right? But at the Georgetown location.
Yeah.
So when did you start working here, and how did you get started?
Well, before I even worked here, I was more of just a customer.
Okay.
To make, I don't know, I got into music, and so I got into record stores. I'm from the Maryland suburbs. So there are record stores everywhere in the 80s, big chain stores, little independent record stores. And so I don't want to say I fell in love with it, but I ended up frequenting music stores along the same lines, just to kind of keep it in like comic book stores are probably maybe like a kid's first love. So I would say like the local comic shops were the ones where I kind of learned how to habitually collect. And then from there, when I got into music, I was like, oh, I go to the record store every week and I can spend $8 on a cassette, so I started like building up a little collection that way. And I had like an older brother that kind of steered me into more alternative music, I guess. But Smash enters the picture because Smash was a store that opened originally in 1984 by Bobby Polsky, was the original owner, and the point of the store was it was a punk rock store. So, and what that means is like it was geared towards what punk rockers liked. So of course that entailed music, and then it entailed like shirts, and hair dye, and just stuff with skulls on it, anything that you could kind of make a connection with punk. I think that's what Bobby was going for. And it was in the height, and of course in DC in the 80s, it was in the height of the big punk scene in DC and worldwide. I want to say like kind of like your dictionary definition of punk. That scene was still like fucking really big in 1984 when Bobby opened the store. So he was smart, and he had like kind of built-in clientele. And on top of that, it was it was a new idea because, probably got a little bit of flack from people being like, oh, you shouldn't capitalize on punk. But at the same time, there were a bunch of fucking kids that wanted to buy Skull stuff. So
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And then I'm not an original punk, but I had a cooler older brother. And so he took me into Georgetown. As I said, I'm from like the Maryland. I'm like from outside the metro line in Maryland. But I'm still within the bus line, so I had a little bit of a means to get from A to B, but for the most part, I had to rely on my older brother during those years. So he drove me down Canal Road to Georgetown, parked, and it was the first location because I remember going in, and him buying like a pair of Doc Marten shoes, which Bobby stocked in another punk rock related article of clothing.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I didn't even know like a place like that could exist, because like I'd been used to kind of like going into regular record stores and kind of finding what you like within it, but there was still like, it wasn't only geared to what you like, but Smash was certainly geared to more things that a kid liked. And I think that's why a lot of people have fond memories of that era, because there weren't that many places that dealt with that kind of stuff. So I think each big city kind of had like that store, and in DC it was Smash.
Nice.
And I should also point out, Commander Salamander was the other store in Georgetown that still gets a lot of memory. A lot of people remember that store too. And I always thought that store was more geared towards fashion. And I always thought like of Smash as like a real punk store.
Yeah.
I've heard people say the opposite though, so I don't know what the truth is.
All right, guess it's up for debate.
It is. It's always up for debate.
So, when did you start working here then? You said you started as a customer.
Oh God, I didn't even get into that, did I?
Yeah.
So that would have been, my brother would have drove me. It would have been like 88 or 89 probably, because then Bobby moved the store across the street basically for the 90s. Because I remember like the second time going, being like, oh, I can't find it. It was because it actually moved across the street. And it was in a basement spot for like basically the 90s. And then in like 2000, he bought another place on the block, moved it into there for a couple years. And that, at that point, is when I asked and got the job. So nice. I was pretty much just a customer for that first decade, from like 89 to like 2000, and then I was willing to work on a Friday and Saturday night. So Bobby hired me, and I had worked in record stores before. That was like my first job, was working at like the Waxy Maxis in the Burbs. So
okay,
I have.
So this has always been what you've done then?
Well...
Or did you take a break in between?
No, I worked in a liquor store during my college years.
Okay.
So
fitting.
Yeah, can't forget that. But anyways, I didn't get the job at Smash because I had retail experience at Waxy Maxis, although I guess I didn't even fill out a resume to get the job. I just, at that point, I knew Bobby well enough where he was like, okay, you can come in here on the weekends and work, and it was that simple.
Wow.
So yeah, I worked for a couple years, and that was right around the time that Bobby wanted to get out. So he, it's like, as I said before, he owned the last Georgetown spot, and so at some point he was like, it just makes more sense for him to rent out the space as opposed to like try to run a store. So he was just going to shut the store down, but then a couple employees just asked him if we could just keep it going, and he said yeah.
Awesome.
So, and that's how I got it. And the only stipulation was that we had to find another storefront for it, and at that time we did not think Georgetown. The writing was on the wall with Georgetown. It was just like not going to be a feasible place for the store to operate. So we just kind of scouted different neighborhoods, and guess I don't even. We decided on this one.
Yeah.
So and I don't think it was a mistake because it's been 14 years later, and we're still here in the same building. We were upstairs for the first couple of years, and then we moved down here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So to answer your very simple question, I started working here in I want to say 02.
Okay.
And then Bobby gave it to me in 07 was when we 07 was when we put everything in this building.
Nice.
Yeah. Bobby was at that time was super helpful. I think he liked the idea that
it was gonna stay open.
That someone cared enough to want to continue it,
Yeah.
And so I think he appreciated that, and so he helped us as much as he could, he he gave us all some of these racks are Bobby's old racks, and product that he would have had to liquidate. He was like, oh, okay, we'll just hold on to it and consign it, so just stuff like that. So it wasn't like we automatically had to find a store full of stuff. A lot of the things that make things opening your own business difficult, we were able to sidestep because we had people like Bobby to help us out.
That's great.
Yeah, it was.
So what would you say is the customer demographic then? Do you get a lot of tourists or a lot of locals or a mix?
Everyone. That's the good thing, is that we don't over rely on any one demographic. So you still get kids coming in here, and when they come in and they're like, wow, this is awesome, so you get that occasionally. You get just people that live in the neighborhood that are just walking up and down the street, and they just look in the window and be like, oh, what's in there? And they have no idea of the history of the store. They walk in, they're like, oh, how long you guys been here? And then I just give them the full story, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. And then you get people that are longtime loyal customers, since the 80s. I just sold something on the internet here, wow. And the guy was just like, oh, I used to go into the shop in the mid 80s. Before it was mine. So I'm fortunate that I have that connection with Bobby, where other people that have I'm experiencing that via proxy, but at the same time, there's also people that when they mean oh, I'm an old customer, they mean from 7 years ago, and they are talking about me, so the store's been through many phases, and it has it's got a clientele to kind of match. In general, I just say it's just people that live in the city. I feel like I get more of that than people trekking in from the suburbs. Because the internet killed that kind of stuff. And we do get tourists. Yeah, that certainly people come to DC and they want to find something kind of like this. Yeah. Like I would when I go to other cities.
Yeah, same. Yeah. That makes sense. So have you guys always sold skateboards and stuff, or is that a you thing?
Skateboard stuff has always been a little bit a part of the store, because skateboarding in the 80s was kind of punk. So Bobby wasn't in charge of it, but there were always he always had maybe people that rented out an area and would have a little skate shop in the back. That happened off and on through his ownership. I've always skated since I was a little kid, so when I took it over, I just took all my old skateboards and put them on the wall, so it's part of the decor. Because of that, I also sell. I don't go all in, but you can buy skateboard stuff here at Smash. Yeah. Because of that, because why not?
So, what has been your best live music experience?
Well, that one, you probably want to say like your first show. This is gonna bleed because like I've also been like I played in bands, so I would naturally want to like answer that with like I played this gig on this mountain kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
which was awesome.
Any live music
well, yeah, but I don't know if you asked that as far as like me being in the band because it's just a different dynamic. But playing that fucking mountain.
Yeah, talk about the mountain. I want to hear about it now.
Okay, I brought it up. So, like a lot of punk rockers, I got into like playing music. So I formed a punk band with my bros, and we traveled around for a couple years. And we played this one show. It was, they called it the Pirate Punks in like Northern California, right? And I think the year before they must have set up a show we played, and it was like good enough. We're like, hey, if you guys come back. And so the next year we were coming back. They're like, yeah, come back this weekend because we're going to do our, our mountain show. We're like, oh, all right. So we set aside that weekend. And what I just remember was wherever we had, if you go that side, that part of the country, usually the drives are pretty long, right? So we probably came from like, I don't know, Portland. So we had like a super long drive. And then we got to the place, and then we realized, like, oh, we have to do some off-roading, and we were in, like, in a van, and it was, like, a dirt road. It was so treacherous, and I remember, like, at one point, like we were going up this road, like, the mountain is here, and, if someone was a poor driver, we could have just died.
Oh, no.
It was, like, scary stuff, like, should we be doing this? Should we turn around and not continue? But, we might as well just fucking go.
Yeah.
And we go, and we were super late, too. That was the other thing. We were super late. Everything was in full. So when we got there, a lot of times you go to these things if you have to be there at 2 p.m., and there's a lot of, like, twiddling your thumbs, and you sit there and you wait X hours for, like, a show to happen. But the better way to do it is if you're fucking really late, and you get there, and it's already a show. Everyone is having this great time, and they're just like, oh, you're here, go play right now. And we're like, oh, okay. And we go and like set up your stuff. And we're like, we're gonna play our rock music. And then everyone was fucking drunk and on drugs because they're on a mountain, and everyone like it was fucking great. The response was good, and people were into it, and we played on the side of a mountain, and that was, since you asked the question, that was the first thing that popped into my head.
Yeah, that's amazing. That was a great story.
It's like definitely like my guys that were there, like if I'm like, hey, remember that time we played the mountain, and like everyone's just gonna smile. Everyone's gonna be like, yeah, I remember that. Because it was super cool.
Wow, risk your
life.
life.
But I feel like I have to answer your question the more proper way.
Okay, go for it.
And we're gonna, for like as far as like the, just going to a show and feeling like, and being introduced to a scene, and the Morrissey show, and that one's kind of a dirty word now because everyone hates Morrissey, but that first Morrissey show, when the Smiths had broken up, I missed the Smiths completely. Let's just get that out of the way. If you saw the Smiths in the United States, like, kudos to you. You're a badass. But so when Morrissey did the solo stuff, he didn't tour. So he did Viva Hate, and then he did all the, like, Bone of Drag being basically the second album, and he didn't play the States. So he kind of built this, people really wanted to see him. People were excited to see him. So on the third album, he did the tour, and that was the one that my brother, this is a good story for you. So now everyone just goes on the internet, and whenever time you got to do it, you just do your thing, and everyone's kind of like hopes they get their ticket, right? Which is great. That's so much better than the way. But when you used to have to do it, you used to physically go to JCPenney. You have to go to like a ticket outlet, right? Yeah. And people would camp out, and so that was the thing. It was like a little bit of a camaraderie thing. Oh, we're gonna go camp out for U2 tickets, And, so that was the thing that even it wasn't even my generation. I felt like it was people like a little bit older than me that they did. But my brother, had a friend whose mom worked at JCPenney in the booth. So when that 12 p.m. came, she got those 4 tickets, and so we had really good seats.
Oh, wow.
We had really good seats for that show, and I was really excited about it. And I think we went there, it was during the day, so I got to see everyone. And as I said, I already explained this, but I was like, it was like first time I was so bored with where I came from in the suburbs, because it was like pretty unexciting as suburbs can be.
Yeah.
And so seeing this kind of like cadre of people, it just made me like wonder where they all came from. So, and the show was okay too. But yeah, and over the course of the years, I've actually met some people that were at that show, so I've actually been able to like, I mean, it was a pretty big show still, so, but like, it's nice that you can kind of, people, you meet people that were there at, at different points, and even though I didn't know them, it still is kind of nice. We still like there's I'm thinking of a particular friend of mine who was there, and I didn't meet her until like 5 years ago, but we have this like kind of weird connection, like, oh, we were into the same thing at that point in time, even though we didn't know each other. So
wow.
So yeah, so that is the more proper answer to your question.
Okay.
All right.
So have you ever been starstruck by somebody coming into the store?
I did meet Johnny Rotten once, and I made like
the
biggest ass of myself. It was in this neighborhood, but he didn't come into the store. At the time, I would just leave here at work. My friend's bar was across the street. They're not there anymore. But I used to just go across the street, get a beer, and just chillax with my friends. And when I walked in, there was like a guy in a suit was like, and the bartender were shaking hands, and this was right when we thought the bar was gonna go. I was like, oh my god, did I just witness like my friend's bar just going down the tubes? And so I'm like, what was that about? They're like, oh no, it's not what you're thinking. That guy's like managing some band, and he wants to maybe film like documentary, like part of some documentary here in the bar, because it's called Pharmacy Bar. He thought it would be good for the band. And I was like, okay, what band? And he's like, no, some band called Pill. I was just like, and my friend who was into punk, but he seemed like he totally was just like, totally didn't seem to, he didn't acknowledge what was going on. So I was just like,
casual.
I was like, are you telling me that fucking Johnny Rotten's gonna be walking into this bar, man? He's like, no. It's some guy named John Lydon. I was like, ah! I was just like so frustrated with him. So frustrated. And he's like, dude, they're gonna come, man. He said they're gonna come. So I was like, okay. And so every time the door opened, I was like, and they totally did not come. And I heard someone else saying where they were. And I was like, all right, guys. It's nice to hang with you, but I gotta go somewhere else. So I went up to the rooftop bar, Perry's, which is like not like a punk bar.
Mm-hmm.
I lied my way in. People are like, oh, we're closed. I'm like, oh, I'm with the band. They're like, oh, just go straight upstairs. Like, yes. I walked up and walked, and there was like, it was like, I don't know, a typical rooftop bar setting. It wasn't that packed. It was just like kind of people milling about. I was carrying this huge box of like records, and I just set them down. I walked to the end of the bar, and I was sitting down next to Johnny Rotten.
Wow.
Yeah. And I now might also say this is before like, oh, everyone hates him now. This is before like he said all the things that people hate him now about. They hated whatever he said then. People hated him too, but it wasn't as bad as now. But anyways, then I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, what do you do?
What do you do, right? Because I was starstruck.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a phone. This is phone era, and I think it was pre-smartphone era, though, for me. And I just texted people that I thought would care. I was like, hey, I'm in a bar next to Johnny Rotten. What do I do? And I don't know what I thought. Like, people were really going to give me solid advice. People were just, like, making fun of me. But, like, I just, like, sent it, like, just everyone in my phone.
Yeah.
And at some point when the other regular people in the bar started realizing, like, oh, this guy is a celebrity, then I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna blow it if I don't make my move now. Like, and some guy was like, yeah, man, I heard this guy's famous. You want to take a picture? And I was like, oh, if I take a picture of you, will you take a picture of me? And he's like, all right, bro. And so I took the picture of him, and at that time, as I didn't have a smartphone, I had a wedding camera in my pocket, because I always kept a wedding camera in my pocket. I have this picture, so I'll send it to you.
Yes.
And so I give this guy a wedding camera. I'm like, hey, man. And he's like looking at me like, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, that's my camera. And I take my picture, and John Lydon turns to me, and he's like, what do people want from me?
Oh my gosh.
Right? And it was like really odd. Because at that point I revealed myself not as a random person, but as like a blah, 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 blah. Because you're you. I love you. And then like he was like, and he realized, he's like, oh, and he just turned his back. And then when he got really drunk, and when he left, I was like, I've got to do something. He went down the stairs, and I like touched his shoulder, and I went, you changed my life.
Classic line.
And he, yeah. That's what I'm telling the story. And he was walking down the stairwell, and he just went, whatever.
Heard it before.
Yeah, that was that.
Oh my God.
That was that. So that's the funnest answer to your question.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
Later.
Well, everyone, there you have it. Thanks for sticking around once again. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you'd like to take a dive into the punk scene of Washington, D.C., make sure to check out the playlist I made on Spotify. I'll link it in the description, and also don't forget to like or follow Records Near Me on your favorite listening platform to stay updated. See you guys again in 2 weeks. And for those of you wondering how an amateur like me can randomly decide to make a podcast, I've been using Anchor by Spotify. It's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere. And it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Best of all though, Anchor is totally free. So if you want to make a podcast like me, just download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.